Good afternoon from the center of Jerusalem. Good morning to you across the seas on the east coast of the United States, and a very early good morning to you on the west coast of the United States, and early good afternoon to those in London and in Europe, the rest of Europe. This is Dan Diker, president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. It gives me great pleasure and honor to be with my colleague and good friend, Dr. Fiamma Nirenstein, senior member, fellow Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, in charge of all of our projects and initiatives against global anti-Semitism. And we are delighted and honored today to have with us as our special guest, former foreign minister of the Italian Republic, Giulio Terzi d'Agnata, who today is the president in the Italian Senate of the Committee on European Policy and a senior member of the Special Committee on Human Rights and the Committee Against Radicalization and Anti-Semitism in the Italian Parliament. Really a great honor to have Ambassador Terzi, former Foreign Minister Terzi, one of the great ambassadors in the history of Italian diplomacy, a former ambassador to the United Nations, to the United States. No one really who knows the international scene better than former Foreign Minister Ambassador Terzi. This is day 103 of the post-October 7th mass murder of 1,200 plus Israeli men, women, and children, and others from over 20 countries around the United States, subsequent war in Gaza, and as many of you probably are reading in your respective languages, the Iranian regime over our northern border via the Hezbollah, as well as the Syrian proxy to our north, are heating things up. And there is an assessment in Israel among security and defense planners that a major conflict in the north is not a question of if, it's really a question of when. But today we're going to talk about the international implications of this metastasizing war against Iranian-backed jihad. And we're very delighted, Ambassador Terzi de Sant'Agata, that you're with us. Let's, Ambassador, let's talk about what we call in Hebrew the latest international mega pigua, or mass diplomatic, if you will, legal terror attack, which is the recent South African complaint lodged with the International Court of Justice, which is, as we know, an extension of the UN General Assembly, pointing to its political character as an international court. Having said that, Ambassador, what do you think the implications of such an accusation are on the international scene from where you stand right now in Rome?
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, Fiamma, for giving me this opportunity to talk and to meet online with so many friends of your wonderful center in Jerusalem, and with so many also personal friends that I have in your community, but also in Italian communities opened among in other countries. What is happening is this 103rd day of this horrible genocidal attack of October 7th against Israel by Hamas, by a puppet of the Islamic Shia fundamentalist regime in Tehran, a genocidal attack which was aimed at the destruction, as much as they could, the destruction of the state of Israel, and terrorizing the Jewish population, the Jewish communities all over the world. That is such a shame, which could only be increased and worsened, even worsened, by this diplomatic that they wouldn't even define diplomatic. There's nothing of diplomacy, just mystification and falsehood and disinformation propaganda, hate propaganda. This initiative of the South African government to seize the International Court of Justice in The Hague, claiming that there are genocidal elements in the activities, in the military activities, and the reaction of Israeli forces to the terror Hamas, from continuing and pursuing and in fact in punishing Hamas, its military organization, as a terrorist posture against the state of Israel and the Jewish communities, and to prevent that will happen again. And then, as Prime Minister Netanyahu has perfectly defined, there is an overturning of history, a completely falsification, distraction of truth, and reversing the narrative against Israel, also after the suffering of Israel. It is true that the Palestinian population is terribly suffering, but the wounds and the death of the thousands of tens of thousands, whatever they are, because they're counting, nobody has them, because they are handled by the Ministry of Health of Hamas. That is to say, also the Ministry of Health is a terrorist organization, have they seen? That these are all victims of Hamas. They are not victims of anybody else. They're not victims of Western countries. They're not victims of the United States, of Italy, of Germany, or whatever. They're the victim of Hamas. And the last responsibility that you can find in Israel, there is not there, simply not there, because Israel has been behaving all its history, accepting, giving its citizenship to the Palestinian member of the Palestinian communities, to Palestinians, all over the territories, over Judea, Samaria, and in Gaza, and all those who have immigrated within the border of Israel, or have been left within the border of Israel. They have been free to elect their own representative in the Knesset and in local institutions. And they enjoy exactly the same right that the Jewish population is enjoying. So how you could falsify history and to find legal experts of reputed international and objective international lawyers that can interpret the resolution for fighting the Holocaust, against the Holocaust, interpret how the 5 major points contained in this convention for fighting against the Holocaust can be interpreted as there is nothing in those 5 points which fit in the activity, but even by far can fit, even with a lot of fantasy, in the behavior of the Israeli government and the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, in Gaza, and what they have been doing to try to dismantle, and we have seen how difficult it is. It is an incredible infrastructure. Probably never in human history there has been a situation like this. A strong army built, trained, exercised, equipped with the most highly technological capacities underground. I mean, there has been, we know that there are in other parts in Iran and so on, they're building even nuclear laboratories underground. But in that small strip of land, in a minimal portion, geographical portion, they've been able to build up a military capacity which is unheard of, to my understanding. And therefore, to reverse the fact that South Africa has reversed the terms of the equation completely, and that they have engaged and they have drawn behind them other 13, 14 countries in what is called generally the Global South. And we know that this kind of operation responds to very evident political purposes. For the South African government, probably could be a political domestic situation, or even an economy, or even some strong complaints about the management of the economy, which have given the opportunity, given also the very fragile geopolitical situation, to jump over the train of becoming the leader of a big fight against Israel and against the West, and joining diplomatically, let's say even forcing the use of diplomacy, the term of diplomacy, joining other powers, like especially Iran, but also a little further other parts of the world which are certainly not friendly vis-a-vis Western countries. And therefore, that is the move that South Africa has taken. And I'm very sorry, because I have great consideration for the South Africans and for the South African governments and the fight for their freedom, when they've been fighting for the freedom. But it is a shame that their history, the history of the apartheid, is also the history of the apartheid, is also in the background of this decision of Pretoria to seize the International Court of Justice. Because, be frank, the tip of the iceberg is this action at the International Court of Justice. But let's say the breeding ground of these large anti-Semitic movements, which have been flourishing, nefariously flourishing among even the Western so-called intellectuals in Western universities, and unfortunately also among expatriates in the Muslim communities, that shows that this action, International Court of Justice, is popular with part of those public opinion I mentioned, because it is based on a breeding culture which is anti-Semitic, which has been believing that Israel is guilty of putting the Palestinians in an apartheid situation, which is completely false, which is not true, but for the reasons they said, the way, the legal position, the economic position, the factual position of the Palestinians living in Israel. So there is no apartheid. The apartheid in South Africa was completely different. And the South African now use the argument of the apartheid, because the recourse to the court in The Hague mentions the fact that there is a historical trend of apartheid in Israel. I mean, they've been suffering apartheid, and they use the victims of the South African apartheid to falsify history in other countries where the apartheid does not exist. So they are even mistreating and putting a really big cloud on the true apartheid, which was the one that they suffered. So these are my consideration, dear friends, of what is going on. And as much as I can, I will be an advocate of promoting clear position in the Italian Parliament on this aspect, and being active in the Italian media, and also in your discussion, in your conversation. And please be assured that you have many friends here in Rome and in Italy, and I hope in Europe. And the fact that I am a believer in international law and in international justice. So we cannot afford to this instrument to be abused in such shameful way.
First of all, let me thank you, Ambassador. Giulio Terzi has been also the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Italy. He has been the ambassador either to the United States and to Italy. I mean that what he's saying now has an incredible, strong importance for what he is, because he has always been, I think, the most outspoken and clear Italian politician and intellectual, if I can express myself this way, that has condemned since the very beginning one of the worst signs that anti-Semitism was growing all over the world and was not combated by anybody, which is the Iranian issue. Because Senator Terzi has been the only one that has personally fought against the Iranian position of openly declaring that its own aim is just the destruction of the state of Israel, and while nobody else was doing that, he was declaring that for a nation sitting in the United Nations and all over the world, in all the commissions, even being the president of the Commission for Human Rights, that really is one of the most perverted thing that I have ever heard about. Giulio Terzi always denounced this, declared this, and was personally submitted with another big group of people that was meeting in Paris. Maybe you don't know this then, and our listeners don't. So I want to say this. He was personally the object, together with other people, of an attempt of a terrorist attack in Paris. And so this is these are things that must be well known, because otherwise you don't know the value, the importance of taking positions. Taking position is not easy. I want to tell you that what you were saying now is extremely important. I think that all along
JCPA?
The International Court of Justice.
ICJ.
ICJ.
Not JCPA.
Exactly. During the ICJ impossible, perverted audiences in this last week, in the other week, there was only one consolation. That was the fact that Germany declared that they wanted to be heard after South Africa and after Israel, and because they felt that they had to stand on the side of Israel, exactly as Senator Terzi is doing now. Now I want to tell you that this international fight is extremely important now, has never been so important. And we are here for that. We are here, the JCPA is here to promote that with all of our might. Why that? Because we have read the intentions of South Africa and of whoever stands beyond it, which means Russia, China, Iran in the first place, and all of the countries that have pushed South Africa and have been deciding that this was the puppet that they were using in this act of aggression, of incredible perverted aggression toward Israel. We could read the meaning of this just in the very first speech that I think that he was the Minister of Justice gave in the opening of the session of accusation, when he said not that we were a genocidal people because we were fighting the war in Gaza in a non-proportional way or whatever. He said that since 1948, Israel had been genocidal country.
Exactly, Fiamma. That's what I was referring about, the accusation of apartheid and so on.
Exactly. So what did he mean then? What he meant was exactly that Israel is a state that doesn't have the right to exist. That since 1948, it can be considered a colonialist, apartheid.
Fiamma, if I may interrupt, there is an high official in the United Nations who is very close to that theory. I don't mention the name, but it's easy to find the name.
Yes.
I'm very sorry. Apologize. I am extremely time constrained with the session of the committee. That
one last question.
They have been waiting. They have been waiting for me for some time. So I'm very sorry.
One last question, Ambassador. Senator Terzi, one last question. In view of the fact, and I want our many listeners to hear this question to see whether Italy can play a lead role in this. In view of the fact that South Africa and the Islamic Republic of Iran signed a strategic cooperation agreement in November 2023, which included a political agreement, an economic agreement, and in view of the fact that the South African government has officially been hosting Hamas in Cape Town, South Africa, for many, many years, is there not a position to bring the South African government up on charges at the International Court of Justice of either incitement to genocide or an accomplice to a genocidal regime, which we already know the Islamic Republic of Iran is that, as well as hosting a self-declared genocidal organization in the Hamas?
Thank you, Dan. I think it's a very important question. It is a very important question because it is one of the consequences. The Italian posture is quite clear in general terms before this action by South African International Court of Justice, but commenting the immediate aftermath of the October 7th attack, genocidal attack by Hamas, Prime Minister Meloni said, "Antisemitism is a cancer that must be defeated, a plague which, if left unchecked, will continue to spread even throughout Europe and the West." So the position of this government, this parliamentary majority on this issue is very clear. We don't, there are no, let's say, way out from this main trend that we have to fight concretely on this issue. Personally, I believe that an action by Italy and other countries, but I have not any doubt that Italy taking the lead could be very significant. But this is my personal position, personal opinion as a member of the Italian Parliament, the Italian Senate. But I believe I'm not in the position now to take a commitment even for the Parliament, but I take commitment for myself that this is the way that I wish to go. That is not a wish, is an engagement.
About Turkey.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fiamma. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much. We'll continue our conversation.
Thank you, Giulio.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll continue.
See you soon. Bye.
Our analysis, and we're going to let Senator Terzi go to his next meeting in the Italian Senate, and we're going to continue with our assessment and our discussion. Yeah, please, Fiamma.
I would say one more little thing. Today we are short in time, unfortunately. The problem is this: state by state, there are things that have been done all along these years, just living out without taking into consideration how this incredible attitude toward the state of Israel, the incredible easiness with which, for instance, UNESCO declares the institutions. I mean, UNESCO declares Jerusalem a Muslim heritage, or Obama in 2020 doesn't give the veto, the traditional veto to the resolution declaring so that Jerusalem is an occupied part. That was really an incredible story that has all to be done. And all along the time, when the French president goes to Abu Mazen, that tells the Jews that had just told a few days before the Jews desecrated the Temple Mount with their filthy feet, and nobody says a word about that. I mean, there are plenty of episodes that say that just to give a vote, because nowadays more than 20 nations have already given to the ICRA the contemporary definition of anti-Semitism, that very clearly say that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, is not enough to vote for that if you don't put it in practice. If you are not careful about what you say, how you vote, and if you don't leave alone, and we will dedicate a special discussion to this, if you don't leave out of the discussion the idea that Israel is an illegal occupier, that we will demonstrate, we will discuss it with Ambassador Baker, which is absolutely untrue. This is something that has always been used as a trope that has bring that has brought plenty of people to imagine that Israel is a tough violator of international laws, and it's a way of delegitimizing its politics and its existence itself. So in the institutions, the vote of the institution, which always finds an easy way for unite whenever there are very strong clashes among the people. For instance, in the European Union, this is the case. Whenever you vote something against Israel, everybody votes together. Otherwise, the foreign ministers of the several nations that are part of it never agree on anything, but on Israel, but for somebody, usually they can find the unity, and that's the easiest way. The way that all along these years have gone a long way through the delegitimization of the international politics of the State of Israel, has coped then, therefore, with the anti-Semitic tropes of being a colonialist,
imperialist,
and genocidal, and whatsoever. I mean, the two things come together. There are accusations that seem less important, but that all along the time become heavier and heavier, and form the plafond on which these crazy movements that go in the street, shout, kill the Jews, or from the river to the sea, can build up their powers. So here we really need, for instance, take Turkey, okay? We still keep having relationship here and there, not all the time, because of course Erdogan, whenever he has a possibility of attacking the Jews, being the anti-Semitic that he is, he does it. And now that he will have the elections in March, he knows very well that going against the Jews in this time is a way again to appeal to the people that he wants to vote for him. But he does it all the time. Whenever there are elections approaching, he becomes more and more anti-Semite. The things that he has done, shouting against Shimon Peres in Davos, sending the Mavi Marmara, saying that we desecrate and we want to conquer Al-Aqsa, sending, guesting the people of Hamas in his country, sending them money, helping them. We know all of this. But nowadays, it's different. Anti-Semitism has become too much of an important and strong movement to let it go. Now that he has accused and put in prison for some hours, then the international help has liberated him, and our Yechitzchiel is his name, has come back home.
You're talking about the basketball player.
Yeah, no, it's not a basketball. You are American. It's a football player.
Football.
Yeah, I'm Italian. He's a
athlete.
He's a football, very good football player. He's now back, and he was just welcome as a hero. Gibor was shouting, right so, because he just, everybody knows the story already. He had written on his wrist on a white fascia, come si dice?
Wristband.
Sì, on a wristband, 100 days, and made a little Star of David, and then he made a heart for the Hatufim, for the kidnapped victims. So, and that was enough to declare, to throw him out of the team, send him to prison for a few hours, and if it was not for the international intervention, who knows what would have happened to him in those prisons of Turkey that have become object of movies for as terrible as they are. So he is back now, but Erdogan has shown itself again for what he is, an anti-Semite that has persecuted Jews and Kurds and has a malevolent presence all over the world. And it's about time that everybody all over the world, and it's about time for whoever can have an influence on that the sport international team will condemn what he has done. If you remember, when Floyd was killed in America, there was a period when the football team were bending on their knees, just showing their political position. Nobody there saying a thing about that.
No, it's good. That's a double standard without question.
Again, we have a double standard that goes together with the Nazification, which goes together with the demonization, which goes together with all the tropes of anti-Semitism. So it's about time, also about Turkey, to say what is true. And whenever there is an episode like that, I think that we have to act practically and clearly.
Clearly, absolutely, Fiamma. Did you want to mention just something about the wonderful book
Please.
you wrote, Double Message, Double Standard? I think it's a book that our friends from across the sea would like to take a look at in the digital form. If you go to jcpa.org, this book is Fiamma's book called Double Standard, Double Message.
About how the IRA has been IRA. Yes, I'm Italian. Like how the IRA has been betrayed. So the IRA is voted and betrayed. The book must be updated. We are in the process of doing that. And whoever would like to read also Jewish Lives Matter, that's another book about human rights and anti-Semitism, and it shows how the human rights movement have in a very ridiculous way transformed themselves in anti-Semitic.
I think the seriousness of what we're seeing, what Fiamma has seen many years ago,
right?
In a way, she was sort of creating the wave before we're all surfing on the wave of global anti-Semitism. Is a genocidal anti-Semitism, but it has a political packaging to it. And so for so many years, anti-Semitism refused as a global phenomenon to accept the fact that there is a political essence to it. There is a political DNA to the new anti-Semitism, which is a collective anti-Semitism that targets the Jewish collective in Israel and ends up targeting Jewish individuals across the ocean, whether it's in Europe or against a second hop over to North America. And we're seeing this genocidal anti-Semitism metastasize in ways that we have not seen anti-Semitism metastasize since the Nazi period. This is one particular area where the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs is taking a lead role in exposing the Hamas and its Iranian paymasters' connection to this ongoing anti-Semitism that began with the Soviet Union in the 1970s in the United Nations. It picked up a tremendous amount of force and was fueled by the Durban I conference in nowhere else but Durban, South Africa, in 2001. And we are seeing that led with the BDS campaign that was ideologically and politically triggered at Durban at the end of a 9-year peace process between Israel and the Palestinian Authority.
The little thing here, I was in Durban covering the story, so I was astonished to see what was happening there. But most of all, that was a few days before 9/11, and what I saw there was a demonstration marching with a portrait of Osama bin Laden, that at that time was already famous as a terrorist, that the leader of Al-Qaeda. So I told my newspaper, an Italian important, very intellectual newspaper at that time, that I saw these things. I was astonished, together with all the raising of anti-Semitism connected to terrorism. It was already there. And they told me, "Come on, Fiamma, what's so terrible with this? They like that guy because he's a poor pastore. How do you say, the one that looks after the
custodian?
Pastor, a
shepherd.
A shepherd, this poor shepherd in the desert." This is what they told me then. I will never forget it.
Well, there we go. So please join us again tomorrow. We don't want to keep you too long, but thank you for joining us for this. Every Tuesday we will take a look at other aspects of global Jew hatred and anti-Semitism and really tie that in, because it's direct connection to what the Iranian regime, South Africa, as a proxy of the Iranian regime, the latest proxy, I think, to be discovered, as well as the Iranian octopus in whether it's in Gaza with the Hezbollah, in Hamas, whether it's in Lebanon with the Hezbollah, what's the Syrian proxy, as well as the Houthis that are now shutting down international trade, shipping, and oil transport in the Bab el-Mandeb Pass leading into the Red Sea. A very serious international state of affairs. We're on top of it, and we'll be exposing it, revealing it, and illustrating it to you, our dear friends, as every single day at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you can support us at the jcpa.org, you can do it on our site. We'd be delighted to have you, to enable us to upgrade our systems here and be seen on JLTV in the United States.